But beware, for with great treasure comes great risk. We'll uncover the challenges and perils faced by those who have sought these elusive fortunes and examine the tantalizing clues that continue to fuel the quest for their discovery. Tonight on Newsworthy, 2 words and 2 question marks.
It's alive!
Have you checked the children?
Get out!
You have scoured the podcast world and finally found us, Newsworthy with Steve and Jerry, where we delve into all things mysterious, macabre, or out of this world, and decide if they are truly newsworthy. 2 words and 2 question marks.
Hello, I'm Ed Locke with USA Mortgage. Tax season is upon us. Did you know that 47% of Americans are planning to use their tax refunds for everyday expenses, home improvements, and vacations? What if you used your tax refund for a new home instead? Again, this is Ed Locke with USA Mortgage. Your tax refund can be used towards down payment, closing costs, or paying down existing debt to help get approved. So before you spend that tax refund, let's get together and see how to best utilize those funds to invest in your future and your new home. Call or text me at 502-680-0953. Again, that's 502-680-0953. NMLS ID 448908, Das Acquisitions LLC, doing business as USA Mortgage, NMLS ID 227262. This is not a commitment to lend. Additional terms and conditions apply. USA Mortgage is an equal housing lender.
Jerry.
Hello, Mr. Steven.
How are you?
I'm great. Yourself?
Dude, I'm not going to lie. I have got the dumbest injury alert on the face of the planet.
Surely not.
Dude, we were talking a little while ago about how getting old is kind of a raw deal. But I mean, it beats the alternative, right?
That it does.
But on the way home from work yesterday, I'm driving and I get a stupid cramp in my foot. And it feels like it broke bones. Like today, I've been hobbled all day. I had to wear Crocs to work today because I couldn't bend my foot.
I've never had it as bad as the way you described it, but I have had a similar issue probably for the last 20, 25 years that occurs from different times. So I can't imagine. I think you're very lucky to have gone this far and never had it before. I think it attempted to even the playing field by being 100 times worse than I've ever had and been like, oh, okay, we got to play catch up with this guy.
Well, it would have been okay if it was on my other foot. But it's on my shift foot for my motorcycle, so that's not okay. It's got to get fixed.
Yeah,
like
but you say
stat.
It would be okay if it was the other foot. It was on your left foot. So if it was the other foot, it'd be your right foot. How can you drive if you can't press the gas or the brake?
I don't need to press gas on my motorcycle. I have a hand for that.
Were you on the motorcycle when you were coming home yesterday?
No, but I could have walked. You got to understand priorities, Jerry. Motorcycles equal priorities.
Apparently so.
Speaking of, the other day I actually went to the History Museum.
Really?
Yeah. And turns out I saw my ex-wife there. She was on the other side.
But you were happy, huh?
No, well, I didn't. I felt a little awkward going over there. There was just so much history between us.
Yeah, I can see where that could be a problem. Depending upon the history. You were saying earlier you've not slept well this week, apparently due to time change.
Oh, my gosh. Congress, if you're in control of that, get rid of time change. I understand why it was important 50 years ago. It's not now. Well, stop it.
You know how they always say that daylight savings is such a great idea? I give it 6 months.
Well, this is coming from the guy who never changes his clocks. So,
Have you ever heard?
are your clocks right now, or are they an hour wrong?
Most of the clocks in my house are automated now.
Oh, good.
So they're right. Who cares about the rest? The ones like above the TV, you got to get up and take down and turn in the back. Ain't nobody got time for that.
Oh my gosh.
If it's wrong in a few months, it'll be right. So
Basically, you need me to come to your house and change all your clocks because it will drive me insane.
well, see, I found out between you and my daughter, that's all I have to do. I don't have to change crap. Just invite a few people over, a couple of times max, and they're like, "This is enough. I've had it. I'm going to fix your clocks." Talking about daylight savings times. Have you ever heard why the end of daylight savings time is Cher's favorite day of the year?
Why?
Well, because on that day, she can actually.
Oh,
Did you like that one?
ugh.
You should. I've been working on it 24/7. Snorts, I think, means that he does like it. Not positive.
I like the joke. I hate Cher. She's like one of my least favorite. Like, she's one of those people that.
Have you ever saw the video for this song? You should watch it. It possibly could change your opinion
No.
of Cher.
No,
Just watch it. It's 3 minutes out of your life
that's a long
for
3
an
minutes.
iconic song.
Ugh.
I'm not a huge Cher fan either.
I just wonder how some people got famous.
She's got a great voice.
No,
Forget the pictures, forget her,
What?
everything she was known for at the time. She was very liberal. That alone is enough to make you.
No, I
detest
didn't.
her.
I don't even care enough about her to know that stuff. I don't like her voice. It makes
Really?
me want to claw. It makes me want to like pull the hair out of kittens. I'm just telling you, it's a terrible
Really not a
voice.
Cher fan.
No, not even a little. Not even a little.
By the way, my original joke, I give it 6 months
Yeah,
before people
that was
start.
good.
Oh, you like that one?
Yeah, I did like that.
Before people start sending us letters, yes, I know it's actually not 6 months. Daylight savings itself is actually 34 weeks, almost 8 months.
Sheesh.
But most people just think, yeah, it's twice a year,
Yeah,
6 months.
I don't like it. I
I don't
mean,
either.
literally,
We
it
need to
has
get rid
messed
of
me up so
Go with
bad.
one or the
this
other.
week.
I don't even care. Just
Right.
pick one, stay with it.
Let's do a poll. If you are listening to the podcast right now, do you like daylight saving? Send us an email to where, Jerry?
Newsworthy with Stephen Jerry at gmail.com.
Woo woo. We've gotten some emails, got some new
Nice.
subscribers to YouTube, our YouTube channel.
Even better.
We are tiptoeing at this point toward video.
That we are.
After our technical glitch today, it probably going to slow us down another 3 months. We can't even move our control board out of sight without something going wrong. So I'm not sure how well
But
that's
our
going to
resident
go.
expert, Mr. Stephen, fixed all the problems.
No, I don't think that expert in me on anything technical. Now, my son, all of my kids, basically, yeah, they all got this. Me personally, not so much. Not so much.
Well, whatever you did, it worked. We're live.
yeah,
The sound sounds good.
we did. Do you remember when we were first starting out how many times we had technical issues to begin the show?
Constantly.
I mean, it was bad.
Part of it was us. Part of it was Podbean. It really was.
Yeah.
There's a reason why we switched from Podbean to Libsyn, and it was the fact that no matter what we tried, we could not get
Consistency.
with the ability to have guests.
Yeah.
So unless the only way we could get the guest deal to work was to bring them into the room with us, set them down, speak into the same microphones, and it worked. Nothing we did with Podbean worked as far as trying to do it remotely, and it was supposed to be easy, and it just didn't work that way.
Yeah, you're right. And, now that we have this wonderful set of systems, we haven't had that many guests. So,
But
open
we
call.
hope to change that.
If you wish to be a guest on our podcast, you've got an interesting story to tell, a ghost story, if you've got an interesting, if you're from an area that has a cool or,
Cryptid
yeah,
story, whatever. Anything,
yeah.
anything macabre.
Anything macabre, mysterious, out of this world, we want to
That's
dig it. There's somebody that wants to hear your story, or somebody that's close enough that's living your story. We've got some pretty cool ideas from New Short, and they've sent us emails about things that they want us to talk about. So hopefully we can make that happen pretty soon.
And
Tonight?
we love that.
Huh?
We love getting
Oh, yeah.
ideas and
Yeah.
suggestions from the audience.
It's a lot of work every week to come up with something new and something different, and not to get looped into the same. Well, this week we're covering Bigfoot. This week we're covering Bigfoot, and this week we're going to cover another part of Bigfoot. There's a lot of that out there, or conspiracy theories. Well, we're covering this conspiracy theory, or we're covering this. There's a lot.
There is. I think that's one reason we like the genre. We did make it broad enough that so far anyway, we've not gotten bored with it. It's been interesting, and I don't really understand how you could do this long term unless it is interesting to you.
Right.
Yeah, if this was just a job, it would certainly show. Joe Rogan, it is a job. He makes a flat ton of money on it. Have you ever heard, or I know you've heard, we've talked about it. Do you recall what he makes?
Oh,
From
it's
his
some
podcast.
No, I
It
haven't.
really is. It's a crazy amount of money. But I think it goes far beyond that with him. He does his podcast on things that interest him.
Yeah, and there's no limit. 1 week
Yeah.
you can, or one day you can turn to Joe Rogan, and it's
UFOs or
UFOs,
conspiracy
and then
theory
the
or
next one it's
news
our sports drinks really killing us. It's just
next
whatever
week,
he
Jelly Roll.
yeah, he's
Anything, literally.
and that's kind of the mold we're in, as far as that goes, because that's where we want to be. It's very I like it. It's very liberating.
Yep.
When we were just doing the news, there were days at the end of the show, and we were just like, we're just mad as hell for for how long,
Yeah.
because we were talking about things, and whether we agreed or disagreed didn't matter. Even when we agreed that we hated whatever it was we was talking about.
Yep. It was depressing for me.
Yeah.
It would just,
Yeah.
I have always enjoyed, and I know you have too, keeping up with the news and knowing what's going on and all that, and I still do. But at that point, I was having to be so heavily involved in so much crap that it pisses me off. I just don't like politics. I don't like politicians. And I'm so glad we got away from that. Yeah. Always helps to silence your cell phone, which I obviously didn't do. But now it is.
Well, tonight's episode, Jerry, is kind of a fun, cool episode. It was one of those that, I was watching a video and I was like, oh, we can do something like that. That sounds fun. I get a lot of my
Absolutely agree.
inspirations from videos and stuff, that reels and, other folks that, I listen to a million different podcasts, and if I hear something that I find interesting, I want to talk about it. So today's episode was definitely one of those. Did you realize how much gold and silver and jewels and valuables have been hidden away in America?
Oh, I have no idea. I learned a lot this week reading and researching about some of it. I'm not surprised with what I read.
Hundreds of millions of dollars.
sure. But didn't you grow up hearing some stories
Oh, sure.
for your area?
Yeah, and one of the ones I'm covering is it's pretty close.
I grew up hearing a story from my own father, and he had gotten it from his father and other people in the community. I did a little research. I couldn't find anything on it, so I certainly didn't have enough. But yeah, I grew up hearing about 20 bushels of gold that supposedly some pre-Civil War military was bringing some payroll through and got ambushed by Indians and ended up having to bury 20 bushels of gold. So
Can you imagine finding that? I have a metal detector. I love using it. It's a lot of fun. Found an old Mustang on the in-laws property that had been buried.
why would you bury a Mustang?
It was
Ford Mustang?
Yeah, it looked like it had been junked, and it was in a, back in the day they didn't crush that stuff. It wasn't worth anything. The value wasn't. So they just found a holler and they threw it back there. And this was in like a ravine, like a deep crevice where it was a creek, a water, like a watershed, like water would run there when it was raining and then it would stop running. It wasn't an actual creek. And it had, over the years, dirt and stuff had covered it, and tree limbs or whatever, and leaves. And I found it. I've still got some of the, I pulled some of the emblems off of it. It was like a 64.5 Mustang that was buried.
I'm sure the emblems alone would be worth some money.
It was pretty neat. But yeah, I dig that stuff. I like, I've got one that is small enough and portable enough. I can put it on one of the saddlebags on my bike and take it with me when I go places. And
very nice.
Yeah. If
What's
I were
that?
to ever, you broke my heart a little bit at dinner tonight, though, when you said if I found something very valuable, I'd have to hide it forever or lie about where I found it because I wouldn't
Well,
get to keep it.
Yeah. I mean, some people apparently think that you can go out and wherever you want and dig and you get to keep it belongs to the landowner.
Right.
So public land, that's the United States government, or it could be state government, whatever, or it belongs to a private individual that owns the land. So if can find some people that are willing to make deals, it's very possible you could keep it. But
Yeah.
good luck with that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sir, if I found $100 million in gold in your property, would it be okay if I kept it? Oh, sure, no problem. I won't want a thing from you.
Yeah, no kidding, right? I'm pretty sure I would bring it to my place and dig a hole. I'm just saying.
Yep.
I mean, what's that one meme? If I won the lottery, I wouldn't tell anybody, but there'd be signs and it's like a double thick bologna sandwich. So you talk about, I heard similar stories. The story from where I grew up was there was a guy, General John Hunt Morgan was a Confederate general who burned Cynthiana twice, and then we ended up naming a bridge after him. Doesn't make a lot of sense to me, but whatever. But he had some gold that he had plundered from the town and ended up getting buried along the Licking River there somewhere. And I always had dreams that I'd be the guy that found it. Never did. Found a bunch of snakes and some possums. Never did find any gold.
Did you ever even use your metal detector in that area?
No, I mean, it was so vague. Wouldn't
know where to start.
Where would you start on one side of the river and walk the whole? And in that particular area, the river there's a South Fork and the Main Fork. So which fork are you talking about? Right. So
Right.
I did say that river made me very angry.
Why is that?
Do you remember we went fishing on my little boat that
Sure.
one time and out there by the airport? And we'll get to the story in a second, but this just goes to show you how rumors and innuendo just stick with you through your, like, we put in there at the airport and everybody my entire life had told me just how deep and scary the water was there. And do you remember how deep it was when we put in?
I don't.
2 feet. The whole freaking river was 2 feet
2 feet
deep. We were like, are you
That's
kidding
surprising.
me?
That's a wide river.
Yeah, it was really wide, but 2 feet deep in the damn center of it.
Yeah. I forgot that.
This whole time I was worried about my kids drowning there, and all they had to do was like crawl around on 4 legs.
Yeah, but that's that one particular spot. As wide as that river is, there's got to be a ton of spots where it gets
Oh, I'm sure. We just didn't hit them.
deep.
But anywho, so let's talk about some lost gold around the United States. We could talk all night about all the different treasures. I know of at least 30 that I found that I was researching, and I was like, oh, that's impressive. I should talk about that. Oh, wait, that's impressive. Let me talk about that. And obviously we can't do it. So I think we're going to try to like narrow it down to 3 maybe. And just try to knock it down, I guess.
Yeah, and you sadly, you're going to have to do most of it. I've got one to cover. I had a funeral to attend this week and was out of town for part of the week. And sadly, you're going to have to do most of this. I've only got one to cover.
That's okay. Speaking of funerals, I did want to bring up, and I don't know, we're talking about treasure, and one of the treasures of America, I feel, in a weird sort of way, passed away today. I don't know if you saw that.
I didn't.
And let me pull up his name because I don't want to get it wrong. Paul Alexander passed away. And if you don't know who Paul Alexander is, he was 70 years old, or he was 78 years old. He was known as the man in the iron lung. He was one of the last surviving not members, but of polio. He was 8 years old, contracted polio, lost control of all of his body functions from his neck down. And at the time, the only treatment they had was to stick you in a tube that breathes for you, called the iron lung. Now, Mr. Alexander, most of these folks, they didn't last very long because they give up on themselves. They give up on life. Mr. Alexander was not that guy. And the reason that I wanted to bring him up today, this man spent 70 years in the iron lung, 7 decades. In that time, now you got to remember, he can't operate. He can't use his arms. He can't use his legs. He wrote a book using a keypad and a thing that somebody stuck in his mouth, and he just tapped out the words for, each individual letter to write an entire memoir and book about his life. And always a positive, always had good things to say about folks and life, and generally upbeat. Ended up getting his master's degree, having all of his work he had to do by holding the utensil in his mouth. I mean, he had no.
This story just makes you feel like such a wimp for any and everything that you ever complained about your entire life.
I'm sitting here complaining about my toe, and this man spent 70 years in a tube.
Yeah.
So Mr. Paul Alexander passed away. Now they have set up they had set up a GoFundMe for him for years to help cost of treatment. You can't just go anywhere and get iron lung treatment. So it's certainly not a inexpensive feat, but great man, great inspiration to anybody who knew him. And I would certainly encourage everyone to take a few minutes, read just about how there was no quit in him. He contracted COVID and passed from COVID, is what they said. So
There's a lot to be said for perseverance.
Yeah.
Just perseverance alone. And this man exemplifies the word.
Yeah. I just crazy. I always, like you say, I'm pretty much a wimp for complaining about my toe.
Oh, dude, I'm not saying that. I'm saying
you're right.
Your story made me think, what right did I ever in my entire life have to complain about any of the small things that I've had to go through compared to what this guy's went through?
Right. So I decided I was going to do a couple of, a few, 2 big ones. I think I'm just going to break it down to a few little ones, Jerry, so we can get more in, if that's okay with you. And then we'll talk about, because yours is really cool anyway, the one you decided to focus on. So I think that's the way I want to do this tonight. And if you've got one that send us an email. We want to hear about your lost treasure, what's close to you. The last couple I'm going to do tonight are Kentucky driven because that's where we live, and I think that's kind of cool. The first one I want to bring up tonight, though, is the Lost Dutchman's Mine. Now, this story is based in Apache country down in the Superstition Mountains in Arizona and New Mexico. And basically, this tale involves 2 German men, Jacob Waltz and Jacob Weiser, the tale of 2 Jacobs. most people believe it was just Waltz. Most people don't even know if Weiser existed. But as it turns out, they turned into two men as the legend of the Dutchman's mine. Basically, this guy, Jacob Waltz, locates a rich gold mine in the Superstition Mountains. Many versions of this story happen. But they help rescue a member of the Polterra family and are rewarded by being told the location of the mine. Waltz is attacked and wounded by Apaches, but survives at least long enough to tell a man called Dr. Walker about the mine. Waltz is also said to make a deathbed confession to Julia Thomas, and even describes draws a crude map to the gold mine. Now, this mine has never been found, and a lot of people believe that the mine may not have existed because Jacob Waltz was the foreman for a different mine, and think that maybe he was skimming off the top and used this as an excuse to sell the gold that he was skimming off the top. So, I don't know. There's a lot of gold mines out there. Out west, they're everywhere. When I lived in Idaho, the town I lived in was a gold mine town. So it's very possible it was an extra mine. But in this particular story, I kind of feel like it was a cover. And that the Lost Dutchman's mother lode, this was not this was an actual gold mine. I think that this probably doesn't exist.
There's several of them. When you start looking into them, you find out, this actually either may have been found,
Right.
or for whatever reason, at this point, we no longer believe that it's there. Maybe it never existed in the first place. Maybe it was a trumped up story. Maybe it was possibly found. Keep in mind that over time, there's never been anything like gold that will get people so ready to do
Crazy stuff.
crazy, evil, maniacal things as gold will.
And you don't even have to be crazy, evil, or maniacal. It could just be as crazy as getting into cold water to go panning for gold in April.
Yeah.
Which I'm doing this April, just so you know. I can't wait. I'm stoked. I even have a sluice box and I got my pan. I am so stoked for that.
We're going to need a detailed map of the area that you're in, just in case you suddenly disappear to your private island you bought last week so we can go finish mining the mine.
No.
Oh, that's no fun.
Tell us about what you got there, Jerry. Do you want me to do it in a sec? Let me do another one real quick because yours is a little bit bigger. How about a great reason to go visit Hawaii?
Like we need more, but if there's treasure there, even more reason to go.
Right? So at Paomano Point, I'll get that right, it's an exposed reef break off of Hawaii's Big Island. Might just be the site of over $5 million in pirate treasure. Now, when you think pirates, you don't think Hawaii. But according to the book, Hawaii's Unsolved Mysteries, Captain Thomas Cavendish, why can I not seem to pronounce things today? Captain Thomas Cavendish was a 16th century English privateer, that's a nice word for pirate, whose career may have eventually led him to bury some of his extensive silver and gold riches at the point. Modern day explorers have tried to locate the hidden treasure or even the wreckage of the captain's ship. So far, both endeavors have failed. But any excuse is a good excuse to venture to Hawaii. I think it'd be really difficult to find shipwrecks in the Pacific Ocean.
For you and I, absolutely. That's a commercial expedition to try to come up with the boats, the gear to get you down there, the equipment that's going to find, where to start diving and all that. Yeah, that's not an individual.
At the risk of sounding like an idiot, isn't the Pacific much deeper than the Atlantic?
I think so. I'm not for sure. Indian Ocean, I know, is far deeper than either one. But I
Really?
think Pacific is. If you remember the, what was the name of that plane that a few years ago? There was a plane,
Malaysia.
the Malaysia something
yeah.
360 airline or whatever.
Yeah.
And it went down. I remember then them talking about that some of the Indian Ocean is far deeper than anything on the earth. But I think the Pacific is deeper than the Atlantic.
Well, how about instead of there, because Hawaii is nice. How about we talk about Wisconsin? I have a lot of friends from Wisconsin, and one of America's most famous gangsters is from Wisconsin, John Dillinger. He spent the spring of 1934 hiding at the Little Bohemia Lodge near McIntowish Waters, Wisconsin. After a phone call tipped them off to the gang's location, FBI agents raided the lodge, but ended up with a shootout with Dillinger and his men. In the confusion, Dillinger apparently escaped out the back door with a suitcase containing $200,000 in small bills. Now, legend says that he buried the suitcase in the backyard of the lodge. As he was shot 3 months later in Chicago, the hidden treasure remains in Wisconsin to this day. If I'm in a shootout with the FBI, I don't see me taking the time to stop, bury a suitcase, and then make my getaway. Do you?
No. Furthermore, if it got out, and it obviously did, that the location was the back lot.
Yeah.
I mean, if that is true, if that is accurate, that information got out, wouldn't someone at the time have dug up the entire friggin' back
I
lot?
would have.
I certainly would have been there with my shovel in hand.
Right?
Let me have a piece of this. Yeah.
Crazy.
That one, probably not so true. Or
Yeah.
if it is true, that's not the location.
Yeah,
Had
I
to
mean,
been
I can
somewhere.
imagine him getting in the car, driving 4 or 5 miles, feeling safe, and then like, oh
Finding
shit, I
a
gotta
big
get
oak
rid of
tree
this.
and dig
Yeah.
a hole. Yes.
Not in the backyard in the middle of a shootout. That's the last thing I'm doing. I'm trying to get the hell out of there.
Excuse me, gentlemen, could you give me 5 minutes?
Right? And look that way.
This one, probably not worth wasting their time trying to go look for this one.
Oh, jeez.
What do you got next?
How about this one? 8, and I'm going to butcher this name. Fabergé eggs. That's not how you say that, is it? Fabergé eggs?
I don't know.
In 1918, during the Russian Revolution, the Bolsheviks first murdered the Romanovs and then came for the house of Fabergé, the imperial Russian jewelry designer. Most of the Fabergé eggs were confiscated and sent for safekeeping to Moscow. After they were discovered again in the early 1930s, entrepreneur Armand Hammer took an interest in them and bought 10 and brought them to America. Some sold, some did not. Some have changed hands multiple times. All of that is known for sure. It's that 8 of the 50 eggs Fabergé made for the imperial family remain unaccounted for. However, one of the other Fabergé eggs sold in 2007 for how much do you think?
I've heard this story. I don't recall.
We're
5
talking
million.
we're talking about a jewelry-laden egg, and it sold in 2007 for $8.9 million. Maybe you check your attic the next time you're up there. Maybe Grandma had one. It'd be worth a look. There's still the 8 that are unaccounted for.
Can you imagine?
Something, and that's not even a cool thing. Like, if you found a treasure chest full of gold coins, that's kind of cool. This is just an ugly old egg I'd probably throw out or give to the Goodwill.
What do they look like? I'm
Huh?
Googling it now.
Yeah,
They're pretty cool.
they're okay.
You don't think so?
No, I think it's ugly as homemade sand.
Oh, man.
All right, Jerry.
It's unique. It's different enough. I can't imagine someone finding it and saying, this is belongs in the trash.
Oh,
Do you? You would throw that in the trash?
probably.
You would.
Well, I would check it first, I think. It's fancy enough I would want to check it first.
If and when we get on video, we can show people pictures of things,
Yeah.
I will have to remind the audience of this episode and bring over the item that you gave me once that's worth very similar money, I'm sure.
What's that?
The Santa Christmas sleigh, remember? That you were going to throw away in the trash. I saved it from the trash and it still exists. My grandsons love it.
I thought you were going to talk about your beautiful thing that you sleep with every
Yeah.
night.
Oh, no.
Oh. And I thought you were going to bring up the fact that I decorate with little alien vodka bottles. Why is my dog going crazy? Wow. It's insane.
They probably saw a picture of one of the Fabergé eggs.
Jeez. Sorry about that, guys. So tell us about yours, Jerry, and then
The
I'm going to switch
Beal-
gears to Kentucky.
Okay. Mine's going to take a little bit longer. Sorry.
Oh, yeah, that's okay.
The Beale Treasure Cipher. In January of 1820, a guy by the name of Thomas Beale checked into a inn in Lynchburg, Virginia, owned by Robert Morris, and he actually spent the winter there, didn't leave until March. 2 years later, about the same time, he returned and again spent the rest of the winter, didn't leave until springtime. This time when he left, he gave Morris a locked iron box, which he said contained papers of great value and importance. He told Morris that he would come back for them, but if he didn't make it back in the next 10 years, that he should go ahead and open it.
10 years. That's
10
a long
years,
time.
a decade. He didn't open it for 23 years. It wasn't until 1845 when Morris finally decided to bust open this box, and inside it he found note written by Beale, along with 3 sheets, numbered sheets, full of nothing but numbers, but they're numbered, number 1, number 2, number 3. The note revealed the truth about Beale, the box, and the pages of numbers were ciphers. That's why it's called the Beale Treasure Ciphers. It explained that back in 1817, Beale and 29 other, as it said, like-minded adventurous men had left old Virginia on a planned 2-year trip to the Western Plains. Supposedly their reason for going out there was just to hunt buffalo, grizzly, and other game such as the country would afford. In December that year, they arrived in Santa Fe, where they planned to take a break. It took them 8 months to get out there. Now, at that time, Santa Fe was not United States territory. It didn't become United States territory until 1848 with the Treaty of Guadalupe, Hidalgo, which officially ended the Mexican War. And the treasure also drew the boundary between the United States and Mexico with the Rio Grande. And for a payment of $15 million, a lot of money, right? Especially back then.
Yeah.
But here's what they got for it. The United States received more than 525,000 square miles of land. Now, the bigger parts of Arizona, California, western Colorado, Nevada, New Mexico, most of Texas, and most of Utah. Not such a bad deal when you consider all that. Now, in March of 2018, in the spring after they got into Santa Fe, several of the party went on an excursion trip. Supposedly, they were just going to hunt to examine some of the nearby country. A month later, and at this point, the rest of the party still in Santa Fe thought they were dead. They were supposed to just go out for a few days. But a little over a month later, 2 of the men come back with news. They had found a gold mine, a literal gold mine. So all 30 of them go to, or the rest of the 30 go, and they begin to mine the gold. And they worked the mine until the summer of 1819 when 10 of them loaded it up, everything that they had, and they brought it back to Bedford, Virginia, a small town between Roanoke and Lynchburg. And they buried it. They went back to the mine. And they repeated the exact same thing. The second stash was put there in the fall of 1821. And it was at the end of this trip when Beale again left and that he left the box with him. Now, the letter went on to explain that Beale had come to trust Morris during the 2 winters that he had spent there. And after discussing it with the rest of the group, they had decided to leave the box with him at the time of his second trip. They explained that the 3 pages of numbers were, in fact, ciphers or codes. The first one contained the location of the treasure. The second one contained the exact contents of what was there. The third one contained a list of who they wanted their part to go to. Keep in mind, this was only supposed to be used if they didn't make it back. So it was saying, hey, if we can't make it back, and if we can't, it's probably none of us that are coming back. We're all getting killed by Indians or
Hence
whatever.
the 10 years, probably.
Exactly.
Gotcha.
Wait 10 years, we'll be back. If we don't, here's
Makes
what you do.
sense.
And it also instructed him that he was to divide everything up into 31 parts. 30 for the 30 members of the party. They had decided to give him an equal part.
Oh, wow.
For his part, he was going to get to keep 1/31 of everything that was there. Very well thought out plan.
Which, according to the second cipher, there was a lot there.
Yeah, we'll get to that in a minute. Very good plan, right?
Yeah.
Except Mr. Beale was never seen or heard from again. Never. Well thought out plan. They had planned for a lot of contingencies. He was never seen or heard from again. Neither was anyone in the group.
Wow.
The group just disappeared. Also, a cipher was never received as he had been told it would be. Now, they obviously thought they had more time. Cipher key never showed up.
Apparently not.
He was never able to break the ciphers. He eventually gave them to a friend who ended up cracking one cipher. And what he figured out was that for that particular cipher, they had used the Declaration of Independence as the key. And the first word of the Declaration being equal to the number 1. The 14th word of the Declaration of Independence equal to the number 14, so on and so forth. Now, when you read through the deciphered cipher, number 2, here's what it says. I have deposited in the county of Bedford, about 4 miles from Beaufort, in an evacuation or vault 6 feet below the surface of the ground. The first deposit consisted of 1,014 or 1,014 pounds of gold, 13,812 pounds of silver. The second load consisted of 1,907 pounds of gold, 1,228 pounds of silver. Also, jewels valued at $13,000.
Their money.
Their money. The value of this in today's money is estimated to be worth somewhere between $60 and $100 million.
Gosh.
Neither one of the other 2 ciphers were ever decoded. Ever. Different rules seem to apply to the other ciphers. Not seem to. Absolutely. It's not the same key. The Declaration of Independence is not the key that was used. So, obviously, many bright, enterprising people decided to take other historic documents from the time. And some of the ones that they tried was the United States Constitution, the Bible, the Magna Carta, other iconic documents. The problem isn't only what document to use, but where would you start in the document? The Declaration of Independence is relatively short.
Right.
Something like the Bible is extremely long. Now, what they originally did was to say, okay, if you started with verse 1 of chapter 1 of Genesis, or the very beginning of the Bible, well, that key would obviously be very different from, for instance, what if you decided to start with 1 Samuel, chapter 17, verse 8? That's an entirely different key.
Right.
So not only are you going to have to figure out what document, but where within the document to start. So the possibilities are almost endless, which would certainly explain why that the other 2 have never been decoded. Now, Morris ended up giving the papers and the box to someone who is not known today. That person gave the material to James B. Ward, and he published a pamphlet in 1885 that publicized this story. Now, some believe that the entire story was a hoax and all made up by Mr. Ward. After all, he was selling the pamphlet for 50 cents
No.
in 1885. Now, the land where many think is described is now part of what's known as the Johnson's Orchard. And they have, in fact, used this very claim in their marketing. I quote, "We have an apple we developed on site and named the Gold Nugget in honor of the Beale treasure. Our farm has been used by Unsolved Mysteries in 1987, the BBC in 1999, Fox Network in 2000, the Travel Channel in 2002, and a Korean film crew in 2003 for their filming of the Beale treasure, end quote. So, yeah, not only are they using it, they're also trying to give it more legitimacy by saying, hey, here are some of the different people in media groups that have covered this. Now, it seems that the prospect of finding treasure sent a few people off the rails. People from all walks of life, contractors, electricians, psychics, have tried to find it. Some have even bankrupted themselves trying. Others broke laws, including trespassing, using illegal explosives, and unauthorized digging in cemeteries. In a 1984 article from the Washington Post titled Legendary Treasure Quest, author Hank Burchard mentions a woman named Marilyn Parsons who spent 2 months in the Bedford County Jail for desecrating a cemetery. She was convinced that gravestones were part of the code. She dug up parts of the cemetery with a backhoe. So, to close, we'll have a PSA for the night. Please don't dig up cemeteries looking for treasure, no matter how much you think it might be there.
Wow. Ramona decided to join in on that.
She was very excited about the possibility of this gold.
I guess. I tell you, let's cover one or two more. How about Kentucky specific?
Sounds great.
And then we'll wrap this up for tonight, Jerry. How about lost Confederate payroll?
Oh, that sounds very interesting.
During the Civil War, measles broke out amongst both sides quite often. The story is supposed to have taken place somewhere around 1863 near the Cumberland Gap in Kentucky. Confederate soldiers were quarantined there because of a measles outbreak. A payroll was supposed to arrive to pay the soldiers for their service. 4 of the soldiers, however, decided to break camp and decided to steal the payroll before it got to camp. They knew it was coming. They said they would blame the Union soldiers for the theft and then keep the money for themselves. So they dressed in Union soldiers' outfits. They stopped the paymaster, killed him, drove the wagon and the horses off a cliff, and then buried the money and returned to their camp. The soldiers, however, were killed in action and never did return for the payroll loot. The soldiers had told a man about their story, probably the guy that killed them, and said that they had hidden the payroll in a trunk, and put it in a cave near Cumberland Gap, Tennessee. This payroll has never been found and could still be waiting in a small cave near Cumberland Gap. Crazy, right?
Go figure.
Oh
Go figure.
my gosh, this dog, I'm about to beat him.
Have you ever heard of the Flynn treasure? There was a guy named Forrest Flynn. He was an art dealer down in Santa Fe, New Mexico. And in the late 80s, 1980s or 1990s, he was given a terminal prognosis of cancer. And I don't have all the details in front of me. He ended up living for several more years. But he took a catch of treasure and went and buried it and gave a bunch of clues. It was eventually found.
And cost some people their lives looking
5
for
people.
it. Yeah.
That's the reason I'm bringing this up, because this one is not a treasure. It has been found. The treasure is no longer there. And I think, what was it worth? They had an auction, if I remember.
Yeah, it
worth a
wasn't
little over $1
nearly
million.
worth 5 people dying.
No.
You
But
know.
5 people died while searching for this and trying to find it. That's not counting. When you were telling that story, that's one of them stories I'm thinking, how could 5 people do it and not try to keep the goal with them, not split it up and say, this is not going to work.
Right?
Because you have to look at the other 4 people and trust that they're not going to tell someone, or maybe they themselves go steal your share.
Right.
This is a lot of trust you've got to place in a lot of
It
people.
reminds me of the opening of probably the greatest Batman movie ever with the Joker, with Heath Ledger's, when they're offing each other. You know, they're doing the heist.
Right.
As the one guy gets his portion done, they're offing him. I wouldn't trust 4 other guys with my half of the loot.
Not when it's this kind of money.
I mean, first of all, you guys aren't the creme de la creme of people anyway, right?
Exactly.
I mean, you're killing people and stealing. Not the kind of folk I'm going to trust.
Exactly.
There's no honor among thieves, regardless of what thieves say.
Yeah.
How about one more for the road?
Sure.
How about we talk about one of the greatest outlaws of all time here in Kentucky? Well, in all of the United States, but specifically what happened here in Kentucky.
Okay.
Jesse James and the infamous James Younger gang were known for their robberies throughout the South immediately after Civil War. They robbed trains, banks, stagecoaches, and all of that in at least 11 different states: Iowa, Kentucky, Tennessee, Minnesota, Kansas, Missouri, West Virginia, Texas, Alabama, Arkansas, and Louisiana. And that's just who they have proof of.
Jeez.
This story, however, takes place in Russellville, Kentucky, where on March 20th, 1868, the James Younger gang stole about $50,000 in gold coins from the Nimrod Long Banking Company in Russellville. 6 members of the gang came to town to rob the bank. The other 2 members stayed back in case they needed reserves. These 8 members involved were Jesse and Frank James, Jim White, Arthur McCoy, George and Oliver Shepard, Cole Younger, and John Jarrett. 2 men from town were injured in the robbery, but no one was killed. The men robbing the bank just simply told the teller to put all the money in wheat sacks that they had brought with them. They jumped on their horses and rode away. A young man named O.C. Owens shot at them. None of the shots actually hit the Younger gang, but one of the gang shot back and actually hit Owens in the side but didn't kill him. They were pursued by 2 lawmen, D.T. Bly and John Gallagher. Knowing that they were probably going to be pursued until they got out of Kentucky, the gang quickly stopped just outside of Russellville and buried the bank loot. No one is exactly sure where the loot was buried, but it's presumed that the $50,000 in gold coins is still somewhere buried on the outskirts of Russellville in the wheat sacks, which are probably long gone by now.
Oh, I'm sure.
Can you imagine not only finding $50,000 of their money, their time? I mean, it'd be hundreds of millions, probably dollars in our world. But not only finding that, but it also being part of such a historical thing with the James Younger gang.
No, I can't even begin to fathom that.
It's insane. So anyway, lost treasures, Jerry. More or less news coverage?
Overall?
Yeah.
Not just the ones we covered.
Yeah. Just
Overall, absolutely more coverage overall. My topic in particular, I think was a ripoff. I think that guy selling pamphlets for 50 cents made up this story. So the Thomas Beale ciphers, no, but it's generally speaking, absolutely. There's way too much of this that we know for sure. It's kind of like the UFOs and all that.
Right.
Is 95% of the stories bullshit? Probably. There's enough that we know is that still there. That alone means that it deserves more coverage.
Well, I'm kind of a greedy fella here. I think it deserves more coverage, but I don't want anybody else to know about it. So that I can go find it.
More
all.
coverage as long as they're telling Mr. Steve about it.
Exactly.
There you go.
Exactly. Again, if you have a story about an area that you're from, wherever that is, if you're in Slovakia and you have a story about something you want us to talk about here on Newsworthy, send us an email. Reach out to us. We'll be happy to cover that. We'd love to do it. Be it a cryptid, be it whatever. We'd love to do it. Let us know. And what's one more time, Jerry, real quick, what's the
email
address?
Newsworthy with StephenJerry@gmail.com.
Man, that episode is really interesting. And if you'll stick around for us for just a few commercials, we have another great story to tell you.
Hi, this is Ed Locke with USA Mortgage. When it comes to buying a home, the process can be overwhelming and confusing. With so many options, it can be hard to know where to start. That's why it's important to work with a certified mortgage loan originator. I have the knowledge and expertise to guide you through the process and find the best mortgage option for you. I will work with you every step of the way to ensure that you are getting the best deal possible. So if you're looking to purchase or refinance, please reach out to me at 502-680-0953. So don't take on the stress of buying a home alone. Work with me and I will make your dream a reality. Trust the professionals and make your home buying experience a positive one. MLS ID 448908, DAS Acquisition Company, LLC, doing business as USA Mortgage, MLS ID 227262. This is not a commitment to lend. Additional terms and conditions apply. USA Mortgage is equal housing opportunity.
If you want us to review or rate your product on air, if you have suggestions for new episodes, awesome ghost stories, or anything else, please reach out to us. Our email address is newsworthywithsteveandjerry@gmail.com. Our text number is area code 540-709-1318.
And now, back to the story. Jerry, all night tonight we've talked about buried treasure and treasure that are yet to be found.
That we have.
How about we talk about a different kind of treasure?
Sounds great.
When she applied to run to the Boston Marathon in 1966, they rejected her, saying women are not physiologically able to run a marathon, and we simply can't take that liability. Then, exactly 50 years ago yesterday, on the day of the marathon, Bobby Gibb hid in the bushes and waited for the race to begin. When about half of the runners had gone past, she jumped in. She wore her brother's Bermuda shorts, a pair of boys' sneakers, a bathing suit, and a sweatshirt. As she took off into the swarm of runners, Gibb already started to feel overheated. But she didn't remove her hoodie. I knew if they saw me, she said, they were going to try to stop me. I even thought I might be arrested. It didn't take long for the other male runners in Gibb's vicinity to realize she wasn't just another dude. Gibb expected them to shoulder her off the road or even call out to police. Instead, the other runners told her that if anyone tried to interfere with her race, they would put a stop to it. Finally feeling secure and assured, Gibb took off her sweatshirt, and as soon as it became clear that there was a woman running in the marathon, the crowd erupted. Not with anger or righteousness, but with pure joy, she recalled. Men were cheering. Women were crying. By the time she reached Wesleyan College, the news of her run had spread and the female students were waiting for her, jumping and screaming. Even the governor of Massachusetts had met her at the finish line to shake her hand. The first woman who had ever run the marathon had finished in the top third.
Very nice.
And Jerry, if you can't see the light,
Be the light.